Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's a 2010 Subaru Outback Premium, and it has 250,000 miles, or more specifically, right at 250,000. So if this Outback could drive on water and go outback and everywhere that's not on-road pavement, it's essentially driven around the earth 10 times, which is quite phenomenal. That's actually about twice as many miles as any other Subaru that I think I've driven. Because if you're new to my channel, in addition to doing a lot of 0 to 60s and performance cars when I can get my hands on them, I've driven a whole lot of Subarus. I've driven dozens of the new ones and well over a dozen of the current 6th generation Outback. In fact, I own an Outback. So I'm excited to share this with you guys because I know a lot of you are Subaru people and you might want to know, how well has it held up? Do all the electronics work? Does the radio and the speakers still work? And how does it drive being an early year Subaru CVT? In fact, this 2010 is the first year of the 4th generation Outback. And as you can probably potentially tell on camera, it's really not that much smaller than a 5th gen or a 6th gen. All the dimensions are very similar to the current generation, but what's not going to be similar is the mileage, because you don't often see Subarus with this many miles. At least I don't anyways. So with that said, let's dive right into the ins and the outs. We're going to go through the electronics. We're going to go through the front, the middle, and the back. And then I'll wrap it up with the drive so you can see how it's held up and what you can expect from your Subaru in 250,000 miles. So we're going to start with the exterior and then we'll move on inside. The headlights on these 4th gens are huge, and it is a little bit faded. It's a little bit yellowed, so you could obviously clean that out a little bit if you want a little DIY project. That wouldn't take much, but you do notice that it even has a projector headlight for one of the beams and then a regular halogen for the other. The grille is actually in pretty good shape, but there is a little bit of bubbling on the kind of the top where the fake chrome is. So it's held up a lot better, and honestly a lot better than, say, like some of those old Dodge Rams that have the same fake chrome on it. But otherwise, the lower bumper actually looks really good. There is a little indentation from when someone bumped into this or it bumped into something else. You have the typical little plastic piece you pop off to put the eye bolt hole in, and then fog lights down here. You can notice there's a lot more chipping, you know, the lower you are. Thankfully, these have old school tough bumpers that hold up pretty well, but there's a lot more chips on the hood, and they even extend up pretty far in some cases. So some people who really care about their cars might PPF it. I don't know that that's worth it though, when after 250,000 miles, that's all the damage you're gonna have. And thankfully, white doesn't often show a whole lot of damage, but we can assume that the windshield has been replaced multiple times, because these Subarus, just like the newer 5th and 6th gens, kind of have a tendency to crack. But this one looks brand new, so it must have been recently replaced. And these Endeavor tires by Cooper actually have quite a bit of tread depth and look pretty nice. And the wheels, maybe a tiny bit of curb rash there, but even that just might be dirt. So overall, it looks really good. Nothing really on the mirror, on the painted cap, but there is some chipping up here, as you'd expect as rocks get flung up and make it to the top. That's not uncommon. And the 8-pillar exterior looks pretty good too. So even the 4th generation Outback had some black plastic cladding, but nothing around the fenders like how excessive it is on the new ones. This one still has about 8.7 inches of ground clearance, and it's a pretty capable vehicle. It is missing the little cap for the nub right there to inflate your tires, so that's a couple cents. Otherwise, it has what looks like the factory tint on the rear, nothing on the front, and the factory tint looks great. No bubbling, no issues. It has a rear wiper. And the back, where you wouldn't expect much trauma to happen, yeah, it looks pretty good overall. Something happened right there. It does look like this has maybe been popped open once because it is a little bit rough. That could just be through practicing and taking it off to see what the situation would be like, but not too damaged. And the passenger side, again, looks really good. Something must have scratched it along the side, but overall, even has the locking gas door, so the bums aren't going to be siphoning any of your 18.5 gallons of fuel. And then a little bit of an Outback in the cladding on the side. But overall, this looks really nice. The wheels are in good shape. The tires are pretty new. And overall, it looks really great so far from the exterior. But let's pop the hood and see what the headlights look like when they're turned on. And it's pointed into the sun, but you can see it's actually fairly decent, the projector bulbs and the fog lights, although it isn't a very white light. It's very yellow in the projector, but looks pretty good. And under the hood, the 2.5 liter boxer that's connected to a CVT back there actually looks very similar to what the new generations look like. You can still see the alternators up top. The serpentine belt actually looks really good, probably is very brand new. The battery looks decent. You'd have to look at the date on that. There's a little bit of just rust on the bracket for it. But otherwise, typical Subaru fashion, all the reservoirs are up top, but it doesn't appear that this older version has the top mount oil filter right here next to where the modern ones have. But you still have reservoirs up top, the filters on the passenger side. There's quite a bit of room to work on it. The transmission is right there, if you guys can see that. So it's interesting. The block is more horizontal on these flat fours to keep the center of gravity down, where this Outback probably weighs about 3,600 pounds, maybe a few hundred pounds lighter than the current ones. But overall, it's very Subaru, very familiar. And it even has air compressed struts, unlike the new one, which is pretty cool. Of course, you can always do that aftermarket if you want. And the hood slams and it feels just fine. It's honestly pretty clean under there. But coming around to the driver's side, you'll notice a little bit of chrome around it, or probably the fake chrome again. The driver's side door panel actually has aged really well. These hard, yet being soft touch materials actually aren't too bad. It is a little bit dirty, so you might want to have an even better cleaning done if that's possible. Harman Kardon HK speakers, bottle holder, snack pocket of average size, and what looks like leather almost for the armrest. So pretty good materials. Nothing on the door sill, but it does have all-weather mats, rubberized pedals, the fuse box, the hood release, the options here. So even for being 14 years old, you have an electronic parking brake, you have traction control, and you still have the lighting stock, but it is a bit beefier than the newer ones. And then this is your seat. This is what you can expect in 250,000 miles, at least if you rub it getting in and out. Again, it might look a little bit dirty on camera, but it's honestly really well broken in. It's a comfortable seat, and the power features work. Not sure about that one though. We'll have to look into that. Otherwise though, sitting inside here, it's really pretty comfortable. Fires right up. The wheel is wrapped with leather. I think this is a 6-speed simulated CVT. Voice and volume on the left, cruise on the right. It's not eyesight, there's no cameras up here, but it still does a pretty good job. And there it is, 250,000 miles, just about. Probably by the time this video is posted, it'll hit that. But you have an MPG reader on the left, fuel on the right, and no nonsense, just everything you want. CD player, you have a little bit of storage here. When you go into reverse, here's your backup camera. Right there. But overall, does a good job. I can feel the heated seats. I turned those on just to test them out earlier. I don't have anything to trial with the 12 volt, if you guys can see that, but I'm assuming it works. Rubberized storage right there is nice as well. And it almost feels like you get like a rubber mat up here and put more stuff up there if you don't mind it getting some sun exposure. Otherwise, cup holders. You even have a dual stage center console in this old one. Sunglass holder up top, incandescent lighting, and even the sunroof works really well. That is one of the things I was the most surprised to see. And then just like the new ones, instead of it sliding out, kind of like the current Crosstreks, you just have the extension, more incandescent lighting right there. You have the handle to help you in if you need that. But overall, it's pretty cool. My backpack's actually enjoying itself, having a good time, and maybe we'll turn on the heated seat, let it have a little bit more fun. Otherwise, let's hop out and I'll show you the next row. And I have not been back here yet, so we're all seeing this for the first time, especially where this video is mostly just gonna be a one take to keep it quick and simple, and because I don't know what to expect. Anyways, a little bit of wear right there, probably something that scraped that, a few different accent materials, but overall, same design language. The back seat looks like it's in even better shape than the front. It probably hasn't been used nearly as much, just like most modern ones. And it still has the recline feature, which is cool. And it lays almost flat. You can see the mat back there, and it actually is really clean back here. You can also see some of the tethers for your child safety seats. And I was gonna toss it around like I usually do. As you can see, it's a little bit stiff. But sitting back here on these what look like brand new Subaru floor mats, it's pretty nice. If you're behind the driver, they don't want you to be a backseat driver. You have to be on the passenger seat for that. But you do have a little bit of storage, no vents or heated seats or anything like the modern ones. And a nice, thick, beefy, kind of floppy center armrest. But honestly, from back here at 5'11", I have a couple inches above my head. I have a couple inches in front of my knee, and I'm having a good time. So let's hop out of this row and show you the hatch now. It's not a power liftgate, but you still do have the button under there. A lot of what I'm seeing with this old Outback is kind of like a bigger current Crosstrek, honestly. Subaru rubberized mats, some storage, a 12-volt back here, some tie downs and clips, Harman Kardon speaker back here. Should be a spare tire underneath all of this. Yeah, and there's your eye bolt hole right there to where you can plug that into the bumper and your scissor jack, basically. Otherwise, no buttons or controls up here, but honestly, it's aged pretty well. And it's not that difficult to throw down. And maybe I'll show you the front a little bit closer. The back seat you basically already saw. But the passenger, probably the second most used area, still looks really good. And it's actually pretty clean. No power options though for the passenger. The seat, no ripping, but close. It looks used, it looks pretty worn, but it's not ripped open yet. No storage on the transmission tunnel or above the glove box, but it is locking. And you have some storage in here, but no 12-volt like the modern Outbacks. But because this is the older generation, you do have a physical key, as you can see there, which is what a lot of the current Subaru keys also looked like up until recently. It's just about time to take it for a drive, but listen to how smoothly its idle is. Really pretty nice. And then this also has the old roof rails, the ones that are the crossbars. Not as heavy duty as a solid bar, like what the Wildernesses have of the modern generation, but overall it's pretty good. So now we're gonna go take it for a drive. This is one of the very few videos that I'm not gonna do a 0 to 60 because the CVT, the engine, it's lasted this long. Let's not change that today just to get some numbers. But I do wanna ask you guys, how many miles have you put on your Subaru? Is it an Outback, Forester, Legacy? What is it? Comment all that below. Otherwise, let's teleport inside into the road. Slowly getting up to speed, and you can see how the CVT characteristics are for way back when. And honestly, I'm surprised at how smooth it is. I would like to know if this was the original transmission or if it's been replaced. But honestly, that's really good, getting up to 40 just with very light throttle, very light acceleration. You can hear all the windows. Everything works. I haven't found anything that doesn't seem to work in here yet. And I'm honestly pretty impressed because a lot of people are concerned with Subaru electronics. But here's a nice example of how well that they have held up. Otherwise, it's smooth. It drives straight down the road. And again, just like sitting in here earlier, it's really comfortable. I don't have to turn the wheel very much to get a pretty decent turn. Subaru steering seems to be fairly sensitive. So whether it's a 4th, 5th, or 6th gen Outback, doesn't take much of the wheel to turn for you to change direction. The brakes feel linear. There's not much squish before it starts engaging. And I hear a tiny bit of a ticking, but I think that might just be like a big rock stuck in one of the wheel tread grooves or something. It doesn't sound concerning. It's just like a peripheral noise. But overall, without a lot of wind today, where you can see these trees aren't really dancing around too excessively, it's quiet in here. The cabin is actually pretty nice. I'm sure this isn't acoustic glass or anything too fancy, but it feels really good. It feels really smooth. And honestly, this has more than met any expectations that I had for a 250,000-mile Subaru. I'm really impressed with this. Here we go. A little bit heavier acceleration, maybe a third of the pedal. CVT still holding RPM. Everything sounds smooth. It's not too whiny. It's not too rackety. I'm sure if you revved it out or gave it full throttle, it might be. But I don't think I'm going to do that today. I am honestly just really impressed with what this has been able to do. And especially like the dashboard not having any cracks, really not having any rattles in here, at least at, city speeds, 40 and below. This has done a good job in holding up, and I wonder how this compares to the average example. Check it out. Here's a pretty cool, slightly modified Crosstrek. Well, the last part of this test is I'm going to take it out of 10 to get up to 60, 70 miles per hour and see if I have any different experiences with that speed. While I'm stuck behind a semi, I do want to mention it's really cool to drive an older Outback and just see where things came from and how the model and the chassis has progressed over the last 14 years or so since this one came out. Outbacks used to be a lot smaller, and they're usually one generation behind the Legacy that this is based off of, where it's the basically lifted, extended Legacy sedan. But to even have like garage door opening controls, auto dimming mirrors, the compass on this one, it doesn't have blind spot monitoring, but it does have a lot of other cool stuff and just more features than I was expecting for the age and the generation that this came from, and where you'd expect the first year of a generation to have the most problems. The fact that this one is the first year of the 4th gen, which was a pretty decent refresh over the 3rd gen, I think Subaru really knocked it out of the park. What has your experience been if you've owned a 4th gen or any of the other older ones? I'm really curious to know, so comment that below. Probably the biggest feature I'm missing on this old one is the backup camera, because you do have kind of a car, you know, Subaru Legacy driving position. So it's kind of difficult sometimes to see completely back there, depending on how you sit yourself up, because you do feel like you're very sunken into this vehicle, barely seeing over, you know. The hood does waterfall slope down a little bit, so you have an idea of where all the dimensions are, and the back does a pretty good job with the side mirrors. But again, the hatch wagon design of this, it kind of just fades away as it curls around out of sight. So with more driving experience, you get more familiar with where your stopping and starting points are. But overall, it's pretty good, and I'm up to 60 now. And you can see it's revving maybe 1650 or 1700. It's really not that bad. Wind noise really hasn't gone up much either. I'll turn off the AC so you guys can't hear that blower motor going. Tires also have a big part of the noise you hear with the exterior, and these all seasons sound fine. There's not excessive rocks getting kicked up or really any concerns there. And then if I go up just a little bit further, up to maybe 70 or 75, you can see it fake CVT downshifted just a little bit. Going up a little bit of a hill even right here. And now off the throttle entirely, starts to cruise back down. Honestly guys, this is riding really well. So comment your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video getting to see what a 250,000-mile Subaru Outback looks like, which is a very similar platform to the Forester and a lot of the other Subarus, the Tribeca, some of those things, let me know what your opinions are, what you own, and how many miles you've put on it. Otherwise, like the video if it was helpful in any way, and I'll do more used older Subarus if you want to see that kind of stuff. Until next time though, I wish you the best. Take care.